I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of Winona and our series on gardens in Winona. Garden treasures seem to be hidden behind many of Winona's homes. Flower-lined pathways along the side of the houses lead to lovely surprises. Let's walk around Bill and Joan McNeil's home and see what awaits us. I walk past a beautiful blue spruce that drapes over the top of the brick steps. The dianthus and delphiniums dance at my feet. Blue veronica sends up its lovely fragrance, and a lovely spray of white potentilla adds daintiness to the scene. The fence protecting it all has a rich grapevine for jelly in the fall. As I turn the corner from the beautiful side garden, I see Bill working diligently at his pond. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Joyce. How you doing?
Good. Well, lucky for me, I'm finding Bill working in his lovely ponded, shaded spot. This is a beautiful pond.
Well, thank you, Joyce.
Can you tell me about it?
Oh, well, the pond was really precipitated on us as we did the landscaping, with the assurances that it would be labor-free. And it's almost labor-free, and it has been a joy in the backyard. It certainly brings a calming effect with the neighborhood noises and sort of overrides a little bit of the lawnmowers and street traffic. The birds love it. That's probably been the most interesting part. And it's a great place to expand on gardening. There's a huge opportunity to do water plants. It turns out that a lot of our Midwestern water plants are actually weed plants in southern regions. And some of them have been banned in terms of interstate commerce because they are a little bit on the invasive side. The water lattice is actually a problem in South America, where it covers vast regions of the rivers. The water hyacinth also is a problem in the southern United States. It's propagated locally, and so it's not sort of a matter of interstate commerce. This, I guess, is a Mexican papyrus available at local nurseries in their water department plants, their water plant department. So yeah, the pond has been relatively little work.
How much is a little work? I went out to Valley Floral and spoke with Mark Swart, professional landscaper and pond expert, to find out what exactly it takes to maintain a pond in one's yard. Standing here with Mark Swart, who owns Valley Floral, and he's going to tell us what it takes exactly to put in a pond, what it takes to maintain a pond, and what exactly a pond would cost in your garden. Okay, Mark, can you answer some of those questions for me?
Well, to put in a pond, first you want to find a location in your yard that would be a place maybe where you'd sit or want to relax or have a good visual from your house or just have that one little area that would fit. And then you've got to decide what kind of style you need for your pond, whether it's going to be a small pond, whether it's going to have a waterfall feature, or there are many different types, and it's almost freestyle, so you can do a lot of different things. We're blessed here in this area because of our bluffs and our rivers, so we can kind of emulate those, and we do use a lot of limestone when we build our ponds. The first thing you do is try to create an area, maybe using a string or a rope, and try to create the area that you want to use or produce. And then the pond is dug out, and we use a rubber liner, which is also used for roofing. It's very soft. You can form it any way you want, and it works very well. It's very heavy material. So once the pond is dug out, we use that material, and then if there's a water feature such as a waterfall or so on, then that's also used underneath that. And then here we use local limestone to cover this after we put it in, so you don't see the rubber liner at all. And before that happens, if you are going to have a waterfall feature, you have to decide what size pump, how much water you want to flow over this, how tall it's going to be, and that has to be worked out.
Now, I understand that you did Bill McNeil's pond for him.
Yes, that was enjoyable. He had a little area behind his house where they like to sit and read and relax, and the water. I remember right away they weren't sure whether they wanted to put it in, but Joan told me later on that they wouldn't have done it any other way now. But it was a perfect little area. They had a little slope to work with, and it just worked out really well.
Great. And how much work is that to maintain a pond like that?
It's not a lot of work. It really isn't. I think that's one thing that people are really nervous about. Well, I don't have a lot of time, but it isn't hard to maintain. One of the things you really want to do is get your ecosystem going. So if you have the right amount of plants and fish, if you're going to use fish, that they actually work together, and you don't have to worry about algae growth or things like that. The fish eat the mosquito larvae, and the running water helps, and things like that. So after the pond is built and you get your little ecosystem going, it really is like a once-a-year cleaning in the spring. We just leave, with this rubber mat, we just leave them full. Some people leave them, if it's deep enough, they can leave their fish in and so on, and just let them freeze over, and they don't really do anything. But in the spring, maybe to drain it, clean out all the leaves and clean it up a little bit, and then start it again.
I asked Mark how much it would cost to install such a pond.
About that size pond probably would be probably around $2,000. I would say totally completed, if you were going to hire somebody to do it. Most ponds that we've put in all run anywhere from, well, the majority of them run about $5,000 because they're a lot bigger than that one, but they'll go all the way up to $20,000.
While I was at Valley Floral visiting with Mark, I took a walk around his beautiful pond area, which is available for the public to enjoy, and I also found out about the plantings around his pond. Could you just describe briefly what some of these plantings are?
Yeah, in the front of us we have different types of sedum and euphorbias. Yeah, this is kind of a drier area in this area, so we're using those types of plants in this area. Behind us we've used iris. There's a Japanese maple. We like to use both annuals and perennials. There's a weeping cherry. We like the weeping effect that goes into the pond. There's some beautiful anemones growing in the back that bloom in the fall and give interest this time of year. We also use tropicals. The red cordyline we've used here, which is a tropical plant from Florida, but it really adds a nice splash of color.
Describe that bush right there, the weeping bush.
The weeping bush, that's Walker's weeping carragana. And it doesn't get very big. It's been in there for about 5 years, and you can see that it just has a nice weeping effect.
Mark's Pond at Valley Floral is certainly a good starting point if you're thinking of putting a pond in your yard. Bill McNeil is certainly happy with his decision for a pond and tells us how he developed the shade area that surrounds it.
This was actually a hot spot in our yard for years. This is south and west exposure. And before we built the addition, this was all grass and heat. And when we added on, we ended with a moisture problem as well as a hot problem. So my neighbors have a really fine lattice work roof on their patio, and seeing that I thought I wanted to emulate them somehow. We talked with Mark Swartz, who was our landscape designer, and he came up with the idea of a freestanding pergola that actually provides shade pretty much all the time, partial shade, given that it's almost a lattice work. Given that we had shade, we had to go to shade plants. So we ended up with astilbe and cranesbill and the lamium under the tree next to the wonderful ever-blooming geranium, or not geranium, but begonia. We do ferns, of course. These little heart-shaped leaf guys are barrenwort. They have really wonderful red and white flowers in the early spring. You can always use hosta in the shade, and we use a lot of hosta. So yeah, by necessity, we do shade gardening.
The pergola and its effect could be intriguing to anyone who has a dry hot spot in their yard. Mark Swart also has a sample of one at Valley Floral and tells us of the benefit of the pergola. Bill, tells us that you built a pergola for him, and I see we're standing presently under your pergola here at Valley Floral. Can you describe exactly what a pergola does and why you'd put one in your garden?
Okay, well, it came up, the first time we did one was for Bill, and it came about that behind his house he wanted an area that would have a lath structure, or a place where he could sit in the afternoon, and Joan could sit in the afternoon and do some reading and not bake. So we were looking at we like to look at the architecture of the home, so we were looking at his architecture and his roof line. So we knew we couldn't just put a regular lath structure back there. So we took the roof line of his house and used that to formulate this lath structure. And we had to come up with a name, so we looked in the book and found it was called a pergola, and which is kind of an odd-shaped building and structure. So that's how that came about. And since then, we've constructed them many different ways. For different people, and it's just a kind of a fancy lath structure that works well in the garden or against the house.
I asked Mark what a pergola would cost to build.
It would probably run, depending on the wood that you'd use. If you'd use treated wood, is composed of clear cedar, but probably about $3,500 for one this size.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Walking away from Bill and Joan's pergola, our eyes take us along an interesting brick path. The bricks wrap around little areas of plantings and miniature trees, where low-level feeders welcome the birds and the squirrels, and an inviting deck welcomes visitors. Joan has a variety of potted plants, including licorice and geraniums, which add interest to this lovely sitting area. Gazing in the backyard from the pergola, we see a fence lined with a row of beautiful perennials. The fence wraps around two sides of the yard and is met by a line of shaded ground cover and large, elegant river birch and spruce trees. These trees make way for a child's swing set, which is decorated by astilbes and hostas. Moving from the tall, beautiful spruce, we take a closer look at the perennial line fence and realize it actually wraps around an enclosed vegetable garden. Bill tells us why such an elaborate structure was used for his vegetable plantings.
We built the fence to keep the deer out, and it worked very well. And so for years, our major crops have always been regular sweet peas, a significant number of beans, and a large amount of sweet corn. About 3 years ago, raccoons moved into the area. And with the raccoons, we've been unable to grow sweet corn. They've harvested it for us 2 years in a row. So this year we're trying popcorn to see if maybe the raccoons won't like popcorn. Because we've reduced the amount of land that we've been dedicating to sweet corn, we've been able to expand our peppers and our eggplants and our tomatoes. And we've always done a wide variety of squash, both bush and vine squash. Of late, we've also, Joan has sort of developed an avocation for growing these darned gourds. The most useless thing you can grow in the garden.
Despite how Bill feels about the gourds Joan has planted, he lets us know how he really feels about Joan's vegetable gardening.
Well, we've been gardening forever, and it all started in a vegetable garden. My wife really didn't know much about cooking when we got married, and I knew a little bit about gardening. And together we grew vegetables and learned to cook. And vegetable gardening was the core of our gardening up until, like I say, about 5 years ago when we finally entered the perennial garden field. So largely it's because we like to eat. And my wife is a wonderful, wonderful vegetable cook.
I glanced from Bill and Joan's backyard to the lattice work on the neighbor's house. I could see why Bill was inspired by it. It intrigued me as well, and I couldn't help but take a peek at the neighbor's yard. The yard belongs to June Ballard, master gardener, and her husband Gordy. It is landscaped beautifully. Over the wall of the perennials that first captures the eye is a pond actually built in a wooden structure. June fondly refers to it as Gordy Haha Falls. Not only do Bill and Joan McNeil have their own beautiful yard, but they have a wonderful view of their neighbor's lovely yard as well. The two seem to flow together in perfect harmony. Inspired by a simple glance into the neighbor's yard, the McNeils discovered how to create a wonderful shaded sitting area in their own sun-covered backyard. The pergola and pond offers them a peaceful respite from the hours spent in tending their elaborate garden. Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing your beautiful garden with us.
Well, I appreciate you coming by, Joyce. It's been fun visiting.
I'm Joyce Woodworth. Please join us on our next segment of Winona's Hidden Gardens. Till then, enjoy the spirit of Winona.